Good Friday morning. I do have work in a couple hours, but I really needed to get on here because I owe you guys something. I really do. We broke 700. We're at 707 subscribers, so thank you. And I do feel like I need to post something for you. I was laying in bed last night thinking about the script that I had started, and I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna get on here and talk from my heart. All right, I'm gonna start from the beginning, and we'll see how long this ends up being. I don't know, but in the garage again. Okay, so as you all know from Gen X, I was born in 1975. I turned 49 a couple days ago. I think a lot of us Gen Xers do have some degree of childhood trauma. We were feral. We did raise ourselves. There may be some exceptions to that rule. And some of us had it worse than others. Some people had very loving parents. Some people had abusive parents and neglectful parents. Mine were absent a lot of the time. I spent a lot of my days at my paternal grandmother's house after school. My mother kept me out of the house to be away from my father when he was drinking. So there wasn't a lot of physical abuse that happened to me as a young child, but there was a lot of emotional and verbal abuse happening. When I became older, that's when the other type of abuse started. My mother did not protect me from that. My mother bought us alcohol, me and her best friend's 7 sons. The 2 younger ones weren't so much of a problem. But the 5 older ones, it was mostly the 3 in age right above me. So I met them when I was 12. The twins were 13, and then the older brother was 14. And then there were 2 older brothers who spent a lot of time elsewhere. And then those boys' friends would hang out at our trailer. My grandparents bought my mom and I a trailer in a town called Darlington, South Carolina. There was a lot of drinking. I think I've kind of briefly covered the runaway to Hollywood, California when I was 14. And after what happened to me there, my whole intent for my whole life was to be a virgin when I got married. When that choice was taken away from me at 14, I was lost. I didn't see the point anymore. I drank to forget. I drank to numb. I didn't want to deal with what happened to me. And the drinking helped me to blank out on that. I've been sober since 2012. I had one drink the other night on my birthday. I had a Skinny Girl margarita. I have one on my birthday once a year because I had been drinking so much and I wanted to stop while I still was able to do that. But anyway, let's get back to this story. How I became a mom when I was 17. I'd fallen in love with one of the 13-year-old twins, and he would go from girlfriend to girlfriend, but always come back to me. I used to pray to God to please let him fall in love with me. Later in life, he did, and I realized that it had been more a habit than anything. I was just so used to saying, I love this boy. And then when he fell in love with me, he was doing drugs, he was still cheating, he was doing all of the things. So I'm glad that it ended when it did. It was right when I met my husband, so the timing was perfect for that to be over. But we were all hanging out in this trailer in Darlington, South Carolina. My mom was buying us alcohol, cigarettes, and they were bringing in marijuana. And as kids do, as teen boys may do, my on again, off again would tell people how good I was. One of their friends kept like harassing me, basically like insisting that we be together. One night we ended up alone. We drank a lot, and it was all, I just want to lay in bed next to you, and then let's just, do this, lay down next to each other, and nothing's gonna happen, blah blah blah. And it ended up happening one time when we were both drunk, and I got pregnant, and that was that. I hadn't been with anybody within 3 months of that, so I knew that it was his baby. He denied it was his baby. I'm not going to pretend like he was some great guy, but he wasn't a bad guy. He didn't, we were both drunk. We were 16 and 19, and I did not feel at all like this situation equated to what happened to me when I was 14. That situation was grooming. That situation was a 20-something man who told a lost and confused and sad and depressed 14-year-old girl to meet him and that he would take care of her. He said everything I thought I wanted to hear. And then he took advantage of that completely took advantage of my trust. When that happened in San Francisco, California, I didn't stop him because I was numb. We had shared rooms before and that had never happened. And when it did, I just went outside my body. I wasn't even present. I was so stunned and hurt and confused. The anger didn't have a chance because I was shut down. And I was lost, floating through the world alone. And then there I am, 16, found out I was pregnant. The father said, when I was 8 months pregnant, you need to find a daddy for that baby because it's not me. And then when our son was born, I was at a friend's house. He called my mom on the phone and asked if he could come see the baby. She called me. I said, sure he could, but no alcohol, nothing around the baby. I was already driving on my way home. She said he came in, held the baby, smiled, and then left. I wish I'd have gotten a picture because I didn't know he was going to die soon. He asked our friend's mom, do you think that's my baby? And our friend's mom said, he looks like you spit him out. I think he would have come around. I think he would have taken responsibility at some point. But he didn't get a chance. He was building onto an extension of that small town's hospital. He got sick, thought he had the flu, went to the ER. They rushed him to MUSC, but it was too late. He fell into a coma. From the day he found out what he had to the day that he died was 6 days. 6 days. He was 20 years old. He died 2 months before his 21st birthday, and I was 18 at that point. A lot of people are like, well, no, he was an adult. He was 19. I was 16 when I got pregnant. That's the Romeo and Juliet period. We were within the same friend group. That was not illegal, what happened, and it certainly wasn't predatory because we hung out all the time. And we both got drunk and we did something stupid. But that's neither here nor there. I bring all this up to say that everything that happened to me in my childhood that led to me running away at 14 with this man who groomed me, to me making a stupid decision at 16, all of it ties up to what we do to our children when they're young, because this stuff does not leave you. Although once you turn 18, it is up to you to not perpetuate that cycle onto others, whether they be adults or your own children. I have failed in some regards because being a young mom on your own isn't always easy. But I always put my son first. I never put him in a situation where he had different strangers popping in and out of his life. Never. When you date, you owe your children the respect of making sure that you don't bring predators into their life. I'm constantly seeing these failures of Child Protective Services, DSS, whatever they're called in your state, where they know stuff's happening and they don't actually help these children who need to be removed. But if you are doing your best and you're protecting your child and you're making sure they're fed, they still harass you until you do whatever it is they want you to do. Kids that need them fall through the cracks. Kids that are doing just fine sometimes are subjected to invasive kind of tracking, I guess. And I've seen it time and time again. When my son was 10, I was working as a bartender at a small town bar. My husband would hang out in there. October 2002, we kind of met. And then he made it clear he was interested, but I just, that ex I was just telling you about, the one I met when I was 12, he went to prison. And I remember being so stupid that we petitioned the court to allow us to get married while he was in jail. I'm so glad that didn't happen, because God knew what was coming. And he ended up getting out after my husband and I had our first baby. And he still wanted to be with me. And I was thinking, this is outrageous. And I remember looking at him, and it just struck me like, this is what I prayed for. I was so stupid and so naive. When somebody treats you bad and that's all you know, you become used to it, and that becomes familiar, and it becomes comfortable. And when I was finally set free from that, it was life-changing. I forgave myself for the stupid things I did. I was able to heal from the things that were done to me. I was able to forgive people, even if they didn't deserve it. I did. I forgave them. And then my husband, in the beginning, wasn't sure he wanted kids or marriage. So when I left my ex permanently, we hadn't been together because I was carrying my now husband's baby. But I told him that my mom was letting him live in that house. And I was like, I can't be here. So I packed up my son, who was 2 months old, and then my older son, and we moved to Georgia to be with my husband. Our son was 10 months old when we finally decided to get married. My husband decided to join the Army because he thought it would give us the best chance of getting away from South Carolina and starting a good life. And I was actually going to join the Army, but right when I'd taken my ASVAB, signed my initial papers, 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to Jacksonville, Florida for MIPS, I found out I was pregnant with my husband's and my first child. Since we weren't married at that time, my recruiter graciously allowed me out of my contract. So one day my husband's like sitting outside of the military recruiting offices, all of them. The only one that was open was the Army. His parents had been in the Navy. They were closed. The Marines was closed. So he went to the Army, signed the papers, came out and said, guess what? I joined the Army. Crazy. But that's how that happened. And then, because if you're not legally married, the military doesn't consider you family for our son's sake. He looked at me and said, you want to get married? And I was like, yeah. So on August 23rd, 2004, we applied for the license. The 24th, we picked it up. 25th, we went to a judge who was about to conduct traffic court. Our audience at our wedding was a room full of strangers, his sister and my mom. That was it. And August 25th this year will be our 20th wedding anniversary. We have struggled a lot. The Army fucked up a lot of good men, and I guess women too. And it took us 8 years of fighting for him to finally get what the Veterans Administration owed to him for what he sacrificed. But I say all this to come back to the point that I know this video was all over the place. It didn't go exactly how I planned it in my mind last night. When you're going off script, your mind can take you in different directions, so I apologize for that. But I want you all to kind of get an overview of who I am and what I stand for. I believe in protecting children from predators, full stop. I believe that marriage is good. I believe that it helps children. I know there are some single mothers that are single mothers not by choice, as I was when I was 17. But I also know that there are single mothers who deliberately use their children as ammunition to get things from an ex just because the ex doesn't want to be with them anymore. I know that they cut fathers out of their lives for selfish reasons. When a man doesn't want to be with you, that's okay. It can be painful. You can hate it. It can suck, but you don't have a right to keep the father away from the child if they're not a risk to that child. Secondly, before I had my son at 17, I was as liberal as you can get, although by today's liberal standards, I probably wasn't very liberal. But I was very pro-choice. I was very, women. I left the Baptist church over the fact they wouldn't let women be ministers. I was pro-gay everything, which I guess technically I'm good with gay I am also good with biology, and I think it matters. And that's all I'll say about that on YouTube. I believe that the grooming happening to children today is it's very insidious. It's very sly, but it's happening. It's happening at all levels. I believe that if I had the time and the money, my kids would not step foot in a public school again. But as it is, we're at least changing districts to go somewhere a little bit better. I don't know how I feel about certain people on the internet. I still believe that women should vote, but I'm not against taking some kind of IQ test before you're allowed to do so, because some of the people casting votes and making important decisions have no freaking clue what they're doing at all. It's sad to see the dumbing down of this country. I still love America, and I still believe America can be saved, but the division that is happening today is insane. And I don't know if this can tell you what I believe, but I support this nation's right to exist. And I do know that if they retreated, they would not exist. Because I can tell you the enemies of, when I say that name, things happen to my videos and my comments. But this is the Star of David. The country associated with this star has a right to exist. And I know that if they stopped what they're doing and they stopped fighting, they wouldn't exist. Because the enemies of don't want peace. They don't want coexistence. They want erasure. And anybody who can't see that is deliberately and willfully blind. They do not want on the map. And we can't allow that. We can't let that happen. I'm tired. I just turned 49 and I'm tired. I'm tired. This is not the America that I grew up in. For all the trauma that I went through, the abuse, the neglect, all of that. It was a simpler time before the internet, before words hurt everybody's feelings and got people canceled because you don't like what somebody said. And I think the only way to fix it is to recognize that the system wants us separated. They want us apart, fighting, because it's easier for them to control everything. Tom MacDonald's song, The System, actually gave me chills because that was a masterful song that went into grave detail about what is happening and why. Yeah. So we need to stand together. We need to take back America. I was a third-party voter in 2016 and 2020. But this year, I'm voting all right. All red. Straight down. Because that is the only hope we have. And I hope you'll stand with America and do the same. Because we won't survive 4 more years of Biden. And I really believe that. All right, I'm going to go. It's been 18 minutes. Peace. And I hope you all have a great weekend. And remember, America is worth fighting for and worth saving. Stand with me and do that.